If someone told you that one simple drink, something you could find at almost any grocery store for just a few dollars, could transform your digestion, strengthen your immune system, improve your sleep, reduce inflammation, and even support your heart health all within 30 days, you'd probably be skeptical. There's a lot of noise out there, a lot of products that overpromise and underdeliver, but kefir is not a trend. It is not a supplement invented by a marketing team. It is one of the oldest fermented foods on the planet, consumed for thousands of years across Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and in the last 2 decades it has become one of the most studied functional foods in nutritional science. The research is real, the mechanisms are understood, and the results that people experience when they add it consistently to their daily routine are not placebo. They are biology. So today we are going to walk through exactly what happens to your body when you drink kefir every single day for 30 days, day by day, system by system. And by the end of this video, you will understand not just what kefir does, but why it does it, and how to use it correctly to get the most out of every single glass. Let's start at the beginning. What actually is kefir? Kefir is a fermented milk drink made by adding kefir grains to cows', goats', or sheep's milk. Kefir grains are not grains in the traditional sense. They are not wheat or oat. They are complex living cultures of bacteria and yeast held together in a polysaccharide matrix, and they look somewhat like small, irregular pieces of cauliflower. When these grains are placed in milk and left to ferment at room temperature, they consume the lactose in the milk and produce a thick, slightly tangy, lightly effervescent drink that is teeming with live microorganisms. What sets kefir apart from yogurt, which many people assume is its equivalent, is the sheer diversity and concentration of its microbial content. A standard yogurt typically contains 2 to 7 strains of beneficial bacteria. A quality kefir contains anywhere from 30 to 60 different strains of bacteria and yeasts. That is not a marginal difference. That is an entirely different order of magnitude of microbial complexity. And in the world of gut health, diversity is not just a nice to have. It is the foundation of everything. Now let's talk about what happens in your body, starting from the very first days. In the first week of drinking kefir daily, the most immediate change happens in your digestive tract, and specifically in the vast complex ecosystem of microorganisms that live there, which scientists call the gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome contains trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses, archaea. When that ecosystem is balanced and diverse, your digestion runs smoothly, your immune system is well regulated, your inflammation levels are low, and even your mood tends to be more stable. When it is disrupted by antibiotics, by a poor diet, by chronic stress, by illness, the consequences ripple out far beyond the gut itself. In the first few days of kefir consumption, the live cultures you are introducing begin to interact with your existing microbiome. They do not immediately colonize in large numbers. This is actually a common misconception about probiotics. They produce compounds called bacteriocins, which are natural antimicrobial substances that selectively suppress harmful bacterial strains. They lower the local pH through lactic acid production, creating an environment that is inhospitable to pathogens but supportive of beneficial bacteria. And they stimulate the growth and activity of your resident beneficial strains, the ones that were already there but may have been suppressed or depleted. The result, within the first 5 to 7 days, is that many people begin to notice changes in their digestion. Bloating that was chronic and accepted as normal starts to diminish. Bowel movements become more regular. That sluggish, heavy feeling after meals begins to lift. For some people, this happens quickly. For others, it takes a bit longer, depending on the state of their microbiome when they started. But the direction of change is consistent. There is one important note for the first week. Some people experience a brief period of increased gas or loose stools in the very first days. This is not a sign that kefir is harmful. It is a sign that your gut microbiome is being disrupted in a productive way. Existing imbalances are being corrected, and the adjustment can temporarily create some turbulence. If this happens to you, start with a smaller amount, half a cup per day, and build up gradually over the first week. The adjustment phase typically resolves within a few days and is followed by noticeable improvement. By the end of the first week and moving into the second, something significant begins to happen in a different part of your body entirely, your immune system. Most people are surprised to learn that approximately 70 to 80% of your immune system is located in and around the gut. The intestinal wall is lined with immune cells, lymphatic tissue, and specialized structures called Peyer's patches that are constantly sampling the contents of your gut and training your immune response. The health of your gut microbiome directly influences the activity and calibration of all of these immune structures. When your gut microbiome is disrupted or impoverished, your immune system tends toward one of two dysfunctional patterns. Either it becomes hyperreactive, triggering unnecessary inflammatory responses, contributing to allergies, autoimmune tendencies, and chronic low-grade inflammation, or it becomes under-responsive, failing to mount adequate defenses against genuine pathogens. The compounds produced by the bacteria in KEFIR, particularly short-chain fatty acids, specific peptides, and postbiotic metabolites, interact directly with the immune cells lining the intestinal wall. Research has shown that regular KEFIR consumption is associated with reduced levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines, which are the signaling molecules that drive inflammation throughout the body. At the same time, KEFIR has been shown to support the activity of natural killer cells and macrophages, the frontline defenders of your immune system. What does this feel like in practice during weeks 2 and 3? Many people report that they get sick less often, that the seasonal colds they used to pick up regularly seem to pass them by or hit with much less severity, that minor infections resolve faster, that the general background level of fatigue and achiness that they had normalized simply begins to fade. These are not dramatic, overnight transformations. They are quiet, cumulative improvements in your baseline resilience, and they tend to compound the longer you maintain the habit. Around the 2-week mark, a third area of your physiology begins to respond in ways that many people find genuinely surprising: your skin. The gut-skin axis is a well-documented physiological connection between gut health and skin condition. Chronic gut inflammation, intestinal permeability, sometimes called leaky gut, and microbiome imbalance have all been linked to inflammatory skin conditions, including acne, eczema, rosacea, and psoriasis. The mechanisms involve systemic inflammation, immune dysregulation, and the circulation of bacterial byproducts that escape through a compromised intestinal wall and trigger inflammatory responses throughout the body, including in the skin. As KEFIR begins to improve gut integrity and reduce systemic inflammation, many people notice changes in their skin. Redness and puffiness that seemed persistent begin to calm. Breakouts become less frequent. The general quality and clarity of skin improves. For people who have struggled with inflammatory skin conditions, this connection between gut health and skin health can be genuinely revelatory. They have tried every topical treatment available, often without sustained results, because they were treating the symptom rather than the underlying driver. By the 3rd week, the changes become broader and in some ways more fundamental. One of the most important things KEFIR does over sustained use is strengthen what is called the intestinal epithelial barrier, the lining of the gut itself. This lining is only 1 cell thick in most areas, and its integrity is absolutely critical. When it is healthy and tight, it functions as a selective filter, allowing nutrients to pass through into the bloodstream while keeping bacteria, undigested food particles, and inflammatory compounds where they belong, inside the gut lumen on their way out of the body. When this lining is compromised through chronic stress, alcohol, certain medications, poor diet, or microbial imbalance, those tight junctions between cells loosen. Substances that should stay in the gut leak into the bloodstream. The immune system detects them as foreign invaders and mounts an inflammatory response. This process drives systemic inflammation that affects virtually every organ system in the body, including the cardiovascular system, the joints, the brain, and the endocrine system. The specific strains of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium abundant in KEFIR have been shown in multiple studies to upregulate the production of proteins called tight junction proteins, the molecular structures that hold those intestinal cells together. In plain terms, kefir helps repair and maintain the physical integrity of the gut wall. The result is less systemic inflammation, better nutrient absorption, fewer immune overreactions, and a body that is no longer in a constant low-grade state of emergency response. This is why, around weeks 3 and 4, people who drink kefir daily often report improvements in things that seem completely unrelated to digestion. Joint stiffness that has been present for years begins to ease. Brain fog that they had simply accepted lifts. Energy levels improve not through stimulation, but through the removal of a chronic inflammatory drag that had been silently depleting them. Sleep quality improves. Mood becomes more stable. The gut-brain axis is a bidirectional communication network connecting the enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, in the gut with the central nervous system in the skull. Your gut produces approximately 90% of your body's serotonin. Not your brain, your gut. It also produces significant amounts of dopamine precursors, GABA, and other neuroactive compounds. The bacteria in your microbiome play a direct role in the production and regulation of these compounds. When the microbiome is imbalanced, serotonin production and regulation can be disrupted. The vagus nerve, the primary communication channel between gut and brain, carries a constant stream of signals upward, and when those signals reflect gut inflammation and dysbiosis, they contribute to mood instability, anxiety, and cognitive fatigue. Multiple studies have now demonstrated that probiotic-rich foods, including kefir, are associated with measurable reductions in anxiety scores and depressive symptoms, particularly in individuals who began with poor gut microbiome diversity. By the end of 30 days of consistent daily kefir consumption, something else is happening that is worth addressing specifically for those of you watching who are managing blood pressure or cardiovascular risk: the metabolic effects. Kefir contains a range of bioactive peptides, protein fragments produced during fermentation, that have demonstrated ACE inhibitory activity in research settings. ACE, or angiotensin-converting enzyme, is the same enzyme that many blood pressure medications target. It plays a central role in constricting blood vessels and raising blood pressure. The bioactive peptides in kefir, particularly those derived from the fermentation of casein proteins in milk, have been shown to partially inhibit this enzyme, contributing to modest but measurable reductions in blood pressure in hypertensive individuals. By reducing systemic inflammation, improving gut barrier integrity, and supporting a diverse microbiome, daily kefir consumption contributes to a cardiovascular environment that is simply less hostile. The arteries are under less inflammatory stress. The endothelium, the delicate inner lining of the blood vessels, functions more efficiently. Blood flows more freely. By reducing systemic inflammation, improving gut barrier integrity, and supporting a diverse microbiome, daily kefir consumption contributes to a cardiovascular environment that is simply less hostile. The arteries are under less inflammatory stress. The endothelium, the delicate inner lining of the blood vessels, functions more efficiently. Blood flows more freely. These are not overnight changes. They are 30-day changes. They are changes that require consistency and patience. But they are real, and they are grounded in well-documented physiology. Now let's talk about something that surprises people: bone health. Kefir is an exceptional source of calcium. A single cup provides roughly 20 to 25% of your daily recommended intake. But calcium alone does not build strong bones. The problem with most calcium-focused foods and supplements is that calcium requires cofactors to be properly absorbed and utilized: vitamin D, vitamin K2, magnesium, and phosphorus. Kefir contains all of these in bioavailable forms, along with the gut-supportive bacteria that improve mineral absorption efficiency in the intestinal wall. For older adults, and specifically for women post-menopause and men over 60, bone density loss is one of the most significant and underappreciated health risks. It is quiet, painless, and invisible until a fracture happens. Regular dairy fermented food consumption, and kefir specifically, has been associated in several observational studies with better bone density outcomes, particularly in populations that consume it as a consistent dietary habit rather than an occasional addition. After 30 days, you will not see dramatic changes in your bone density. That is a long-term process, but you will have spent 30 days giving your body the raw materials and the absorptive capacity to maintain and support your skeletal structure, which is a contribution that compounds significantly over months and years. Let's also address the lactose question directly, because it comes up constantly and there is genuine confusion about it. Many people who are lactose intolerant assume they cannot drink kefir. This is often not the case. The fermentation process that creates kefir converts the majority of the lactose in the milk into lactic acid. Studies have found that kefir retains significantly less lactose than regular milk, often 60 to 90% less. Additionally, the specific bacterial strains in kefir produce the enzyme lactase, which continues to function in the gut and helps digest any remaining lactose. Clinical research has shown that many lactose-intolerant individuals can consume kefir without the digestive distress they experience from regular milk. If you have avoided fermented dairy because of lactose intolerance, it is worth trying kefir in small amounts and observing your response. Many people are genuinely surprised. For those who prefer to avoid dairy entirely, water kefir is a real alternative. Made with water, sugar, and a different set of kefir grains, water kefir is dairy-free and still provides a meaningful probiotic benefit, though its microbial diversity and nutritional content differ from milk kefir. Coconut milk kefir is another option with its own distinct properties. These alternatives are valid starting points, but if you can tolerate milk kefir, the research base is stronger and the nutrient profile is richer. A few practical notes on how to get the most out of your 30 days. Consistency matters more than quantity. A half cup to 1 cup per day, every day, is more effective than 2 cups every few days. The microbiome responds to sustained, regular input. Give it that. Plain, unsweetened kefir is what you want. Commercial flavored kefirs often contain added sugar, sometimes a significant amount, which counteracts many of the benefits by feeding inflammatory bacteria and spiking insulin. Read the label. The ingredient list should be milk and live cultures, nothing else. Timing is flexible. Some people prefer it in the morning on an empty stomach, arguing that the live cultures survive stomach acid better before food has acidified the environment. Others prefer it with meals. The research does not strongly favor one over the other for most people. What matters most is that you do it. Find the time that you can sustain. Store-bought kefir is effective if it is a quality product with live and active cultures. Homemade kefir, if you have access to grains, tends to contain even higher concentrations of diverse cultures. Either is a meaningful choice. And finally, what you eat alongside kefir matters. Probiotics need prebiotics, the dietary fibers found in vegetables, fruits, legumes, and whole grains that feed and sustain beneficial bacteria. If you add kefir to a diet that is very low in fiber, you are introducing beneficial microorganisms into an environment that doesn't have much to sustain them. Add both. Kefir and a fiber-rich diet together produce results that neither achieves as effectively alone. So let's bring it all together. 30 days of daily kefir. In the first week, your digestion begins to shift. Bloating reduces, regularity improves, and the uncomfortable heaviness that you had normalized starts to ease. In the second week, your immune system recalibrates. The chronic low-grade inflammation that has been running in the background begins to quiet. Your skin starts to reflect the internal change. In the third week, gut barrier integrity improves, systemic inflammation drops further, and you begin to notice changes that seem disconnected from digestion but are not. Energy, mental clarity, joint comfort, sleep quality. By the end of 30 days, your microbiome is meaningfully more diverse, your gut lining is more resilient, your inflammatory markers are lower, your cardiovascular system is under less stress, and your body is better at absorbing and utilizing the nutrients from everything you eat. None of this requires a prescription. None of it requires a significant investment. It requires a cup of a fermented drink every day for 30 days and the patience to let your biology respond. Try it, pay attention, give it the full 30 days before you evaluate. And tell me in the comments, have you tried kefir before, or is this your first time considering it? I want to know where you're starting from. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. I'm Emily Stone, and every week I share practical, evidence-based health information designed for real people who want to feel better. Not complicated, not expensive, just useful. And if you're working on your gut health alongside everything we covered today, I have a video on the specific foods that feed and protect your microbiome that pairs perfectly with what you just learned. It's right there. Watch it next. Take care of your gut. It takes care of everything else.